our nation's capital is the largest and most modern crime detection organization in the world, with facilities for constant training of agents. Thousands of dedicated men and women process, collate, classify, and file every fragment of criminal evidence. This is the FBI. Each week, we bring you a story of the unceasing war against the greedy and vicious forces that wage war against you. In this war, there can be no truce. In this war, there can be no ceasefire.
They've started a test flooding of all the feeder outlets.
We'll have to go after them.
Defending you are the men of the FBI.
This is the FBI. Come out with your hands in the air.
Greetings, it's your host, Gabe Morales, continuing with our series on corruption within criminal justice agencies. As you've seen and heard previously during these segments, corruption can be on an individual basis or a group basis by people from all segments of society. And whether or not something is considered to be corrupt often depends on the political views of those individuals in the eye of the beholder. This year, per the Federalist, which is considered to be a right-wing news media outlet, more than half the nation, or 63%, want the FBI to face some form of punishment for weaponizing its powers against the American people to achieve political goals. Now, I was born in 1960, so I cannot speak with any authority before that time period. But once I was old enough to realize what was going on, basically the late 1960s through the 1990s, I recall seeing and hearing many Democrats and individuals associated with the far left accusing the FBI of weaponizing its powers against the American people, or basically them. Boy, what a cliche phrase, the American people, at least since the time of Franklin D. Roosevelt, by leaders of both parties to attempt and convince their supporters that they are the true voice of America, not the other side. Now, I usually try to avoid partisan politics when it comes to my videos, but there's really no avoiding it in this case. So I will try to fairly convey some of the main arguments put forth by many factions that the FBI is and has been corrupt. Last year, the Washington Times also ran a story of whistleblowers within the FBI at different field offices across the United States who accused the agency of corruption, cover-ups, and retaliation against rank-and-file agents who attempted to expose it. It stated current and former FBI leaders and agents are facing whistleblower complaints that supervisors force them or coerce them to sign false affidavits. The world of FBI counterintelligence was also rocked recently when one of their own, Charles F. McGonigal, who previously was the FBI's top counterintelligence official in New York, was indicted for allegedly selling access to Russian and Albanian officials to secret information in exchange for hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. After retiring from the FBI in 2018, he was accused of illegally working for one of the Russian oligarchs, Oleg Deripaska, who is linked to the FBI's Russian probes due to his ties with former President Donald Trump via his former campaign manager, Paul Manafort. Many former FBI officials who worked with McGonigal stated that they were horrified by this news. This guy was unbelievably respected and really seen as a career counterintelligence expert, stated one former FBI official who worked closely with him. He was one of the rock stars in counterintelligence who, when very sensitive assignments came up, he was on the short list of people that you would look to and say, hey, where's Charlie? What's he doing for the next 6 months? Major speculation has swirled in intelligence circles about the potential damage that McGonigal may have caused and whether he exposed any real information that might put U.S. national security in danger. Being a high-level official, he had access to many of our country's secrets. He was privy to FBI collection of information and operations against Russian diplomats in the U.S. and abroad. There were also questions regarding his proximity to several high-level investigations, including those involving Hillary Clinton and associates of Donald Trump. He helped oversee parts of both of those major probes. Peter Lapp, another former FBI counterintelligence official who worked with McGonigal, stated that, if true, his conduct is an absolute embarrassment to the FBI. Credible sources state that McGonigal was more of an agent of monetary opportunity than an espionage agent. And officially, the FBI has pretty much ignored comments regarding his case. Current FBI Director Christopher Wray, who was put in that position just before McGonigal retired, stated that there are some important questions that are getting lost here in respect to that case. He stated there is no cover-up. It's the FBI who initiated this investigation, but many people have their doubts. Longtime critics point to the FBI's long history of misleading Congress, covering up corruption, manufacturing false scandals, such as raiding the home of former President Donald Trump in Florida at Mar-a-Lago, targeting innocent people based on their moral and political beliefs, and possibly even interfering in elections.
It's a story with suggestions of a scandal, one that could threaten a presidency. At its center is a laptop. The computer belongs to Hunter Biden, son of Joe, the US president. It's been all the talk, particularly in Trump-supporting circles, for years.
By the way, whatever happened to Hunter? Where the hell is he?
Now Republicans in Congress want to investigate the Hunter Biden affair. So what are the allegations against him? What could be the implications for his father, the US president? The story was reported in the right-wing New York Post before the 2020 election. It went like this. It was 2019 and Joe Biden was soon to run against Donald Trump for the presidency. Hunter Biden went into a computer repair shop. He wanted to recover data from some broken laptop computers, but he never returned to pick them up. Eventually, the computer repairman, John Paul McIsaac, looked at what was on the laptops, as he says he was allowed to, under a so-called 90-day abandonment procedure. What did the computer repairman find? Well, quite a lot. Homemade pornography, embarrassing photos. But it was the email traffic that turned this into a more serious matter. Hunter Biden used to be on the board of a Ukrainian energy company called Burisma. And John Paul McIsaac claims the laptop contained evidence that Hunter Biden used his connection with his father to help in this role, something that would amount to corruption. One email from a consultant to the firm read, "Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to DC and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together."
The announcement of my guy's upcoming travels. Now, my guy, Hunter refers to his father as my guy, or the chairman, or the big guy.
Joe Biden says he's never discussed his son's overseas dealings with him. He's dismissed the whole story as Russian disinformation. McIsaac, the computer repairman, who says he voted for Donald Trump in the 2016 election, made a copy of the laptop's contents and then told the FBI in December 2019. The story eventually made its way to the New York Post.
Ah, boy.
It was seized upon by Mr. Trump and his supporters, but it didn't make the impact that might have been expected. The FBI made clear their concerns about Russian disinformation ahead of the 2020 election. Subsequently, Facebook and Twitter restricted the spread of the laptop story on their platforms. Joe Biden won the 2020 election. The laptop story wasn't given the scale of coverage that might have been expected, but it's now back in the spotlight. Republicans control the House of Representatives in the US, and in the new session of Congress, they've promised to investigate claims of corruption.
This evidence raises troubling questions about whether President Biden is a national security risk and about whether he is compromised by foreign governments.
Republicans in the House are also planning to look into illegal immigration at the Mexican border and the US government's handling of COVID-19. It's all part of a wider effort to undermine the Biden administration with an eye on the 2024 election. How big an impact the tale of the Hunter Biden laptop will have is yet to be seen, but it's one story that isn't going away.
Critics cite that Americans' contempt for the FBI is widespread and is not limited to any one political voting bloc. Overall, they state 75% of Republicans and 59% of Democrats, as well as 57% of independents, believe that the FBI is a current threat to the security of the nation that must be addressed in some form of retribution or rehabilitation of the agency. According to this survey, only 15% of Americans believe the FBI should be left alone as is. This same survey apparently showed that 37% of Republicans and even 14% of Democrats believe the FBI should be dismantled and rebuilt from the bottom up because it can't be trusted to do its job. I would personally say that all U.S. criminal justice agencies need to be reviewed for signs of corruption, dirty cops, retraining, and be reviewed for reforms. Now, I know some of you current cops are scoffing at this. Nobody likes change. But I don't believe we are a perfect union. As stated in our Constitution, we should be striving to achieve a more perfect union and government agencies that support and positively contribute to that union. To go to the roots of the FBI, we really have to go back to the beginning and examine the life and career of the man who largely built it. That would be J. Edgar Hoover, who was born on January 1st, 1895, in Washington, D.C., federal city where he would later rule the FBI for over 50 years, with political power that never may be matched again by one single American. How was he able to accomplish this? Well, you could say it was a combination of being at the right place at the right time and having the uncanny ability to gather intelligence on others, including major political figures throughout his life, to his advantage. In August 1919, a then 24-year-old Hoover became head of the Bureau of Investigation's new General Intelligence Division, also known as the Radical Division, because its main goal was to monitor and disrupt the activities of domestic radicals during America's first Red Scare. Now, you have to remember the Bolsheviks under Vladimir Lenin had just won key battles in the February Revolution of 1917. Hoover and his supporters monitored a variety of U.S. radicals they felt were communists or communist supporters, with the intent to arrest them, punish them, and deport them if necessary. In 1921, Hoover rose in the Bureau of Investigation to the number 2 spot, deputy head of that agency. And in 1924, the U.S. Attorney General made him the acting director. On May 10, 1924, then President Calvin Coolidge appointed Hoover as the 5th director of the agency. When Hoover took over the Bureau of Investigation, it only had about 650 employees, including 441 special agents. Hoover immediately fired all female agents and banned the future hiring of them. He pushed for the recruitment of white males with a college education who had a certain powerful look about them. Hoover himself was not a big man, and it is said that he used a platform behind his desk to prop his chair up and demanded that people who came into his office sit in chairs placed lower than him, so it made him look larger than he actually was. It was just one of the many personal insecurities the paranoid Hoover had, but he became very good at hiding his weaknesses and exposing weaknesses in others. He ruled the FBI with an iron fist, and it is said he would relocate agents who displeased him to career-ending assignments in boring locations. Agent Melvin Purvis was a prime example. Purvis was one of the most effective agents within the Bureau, capturing many well-known criminals. And it is alleged that Hoover pushed him out because he was jealous and the public recognition he achieved for his arrests. In the United States, from 1920 to 1933, a nationwide constitutional law called Prohibition was in effect. This time period was the era of considerable growth and control of Irish and Jewish mobs and the Cosa Nostra, or Italian-American mafia. But Hoover largely ignored them. Many experts believe that Hoover was in the hip pocket of America's godfathers, reputedly because they had a picture of him engaged in homosexuality. And so they claim this explains why he ignored the mafia during much of his tenure. That was until 1957, when the mafia was busted at a large meeting in Appalachia in upstate New York, whereby even Hoover can no longer deny their existence. President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General Bobby Kennedy, pushed hard against the mafia and organized crime. It was only then that Hoover reluctantly began paying more than lip service to the mob. By the early 1930s, criminal gangs were carrying out a large number of crimes in America, especially a large number of bank robberies committed in the Midwest. And they used superior firepower to outgun local cops and had fast getaway cars to elude the police. Many of these criminals frequently made newspaper headlines. Individuals such as John Dillinger, who was a very notorious bank robber. Hoover pressed to have these criminals' crimes mentioned on the front pages of newspapers all across the United States, as well as in other media, and pushed to have their crimes reclassified as federal offenses so that he and his men would have authority to investigate them and arrest them and get credit for capturing them. Even today, I know some local cops who get angry at the feds, especially the FBI, for taking credit for cases they worked on for a long time. These cops have asked me, what can we do? The FBI has all the power, the money, and the right toys to go after the big cases. And it's not just the FBI. That's pretty much the reputation that all federal agencies have. Like I said, Hoover's agents often bust these guys, and Hoover himself, in high-profile cases, would use the arrest for photo ops to promote himself and the FBI's G-men. This campaign was largely successful, and the U.S. government increased the FBI's powers regarding investigating many crimes. In 1935, the Bureau of Investigation was renamed the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and it was not just a name change. There was a great deal of restructuring and improvements within the agency. Hoover created his own FBI laboratory using the latest scientific techniques, and it helped him transform the FBI, deploying many investigation techniques that are still in use today. Hoover also created his Top Hoodlum program, or the FBI's Most Wanted list, which is also still used today to help encourage tips from the general public regarding the capture of wanted criminals. In 1956, after the Korean War and communist expansion worldwide, Hoover became increasingly frustrated with the U.S. Supreme Court's decisions that limited the FBI's ability within the Department of Justice, under which the FBI operated, to prosecute people for their political opinions. Several of his aides later stated that Hoover often exaggerated the threat of communism in order to secure more financial support from the public and government officials for the FBI. Many also say that Hoover was a racist, as he seldom hired Black and Latino agents working for him unless they were ultra-conservatives. They state that he also personally ordered the FBI to cease an investigation into the 1963 16th Street Baptist Church bombing by members of the Ku Klux Klan in Alabama that killed 4 young Black girls. Hoover also formalized what many people call a dirty tricks covert program entitled COINTELPRO, which was first used to infiltrate and disrupt the Communist Party USA, whereby Hoover ordered observation and pursuit of targets, including celebrity figures such as Charlie Chaplin, whom he saw as spreading communist propaganda in America. The program's methods included burglaries, setting up illegal activities, setting up illegal wiretaps, planning forged documents, possibly planning weapons and drugs on individuals, and spreading false rumors about key members of target organizations, such as the Black Panthers. Many people have also stated that Hoover used this program to incite violence, including riots by paid FBI informants, and arranging murders of key figures he disagreed with. The program remained in place until 1971, when the program became some of the harshest criticism of the FBI and Hoover, even after his death. One of Hoover's biographers, Kenneth Ackerman, wrote that the allegation that Hoover kept secret files in his office to keep presidents from firing him is a complete myth. However, Richard Nixon himself was recorded in 1971 as stating one of the reasons he did not fire Hoover was he was afraid of Hoover's possible reprisals against him and possible files he might have on him. Hoover remained as director of the FBI until he died of a heart attack in his Washington, D.C. home on May 2nd, 1972. President Nixon delivered a eulogy at Hoover's funeral service, and may be still fearing his power from the grave, called Hoover one of the giants, whose life brimmed over with magnificent achievement and dedicated service to this country which he loved so well.
Seated, please. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with a profound sense of personal loss that I learned of the death of J. Edgar Hoover. This truly remarkable man has served his country for 48 years under 8 presidents as director of the FBI with unparalleled devotion and ability and dedication. For 25 years, from the time I came to Washington as a freshman congressman, he's been one of my closest personal friends and advisors. And every American, in my opinion, owes J. Edgar Hoover a great debt for building the FBI into the finest law enforcement organization in the entire world. I have ordered that all flags on government buildings be flown at half-mast. But I will say that in doing so, that Edgar Hoover, because of his indomitable courage against sometimes very vicious attack, has made certain that the flag of the FBI will always fly high.
I've communicated with many FBI agents over the years, as well as many officers assigned to FBI task forces. And I have some good friends who have attended FBI academies on such topics as leadership for executive staff. And they expressed to me that they were very proud of that and told me that the training was very worthwhile and added to their already great skill sets. I've been to Washington, D.C. several times, such as to an FBI meeting concerning the Mara Salvatrucha, which at that time was a relatively unknown street gang in most parts of the United States, but had been rapidly expanding. After this episode, I will cover some of the major criminals that the FBI has gone after over the past 100 years and other crime stories in America. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you return to see my new series on those cases. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians.